Get Gutsy, episode number 225 with Alexia Vernon. Everything is survivable. Welcome to Get Gutsy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennig, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. A cutting-edge show blending business and spirituality, Get Gutsy serves up a potent blend of stories, lessons, and tips to help you make a massive impact in the world through your soul's work and your inspired life. No more going it alone, no more excuses. The world needs more brave women saying yes to leadership. Are you with me? Good. Let's get gutsy now. Hey everyone, Jenny here. How are you? We are in the final weeks of summer. Wow. I got something to say on that. It's been an interesting summer, an amazing one. It's kind of the one I've dreamed about for a long time, and it's here. And it's also kind of challenging to get as much work done as I tend to get done in the other seasons, which is why after I finish recording this intro, I'm going to the library outside of my home office to make some traction on some big stuff. My husband is home just for a couple of days, then he heads off again. He's been having a full-on August as producer of the preseason games for the Cleveland Browns. So we've been a lot of kind of movable parts, him being away a good amount, and then when he is home, he's kind of full on with that work. But today I made it very clear, yeah, you're with the kids. You're with the kids. I'll see you later. We have a babysitter tonight, and I'm going to be going to yoga, and I think he's going to join me there too. So, this summer is an interesting time because if you have kids like I do, there's a lot of shifting in the schedule and a lack of structure that might exist in other seasons. And I absolutely love summer. Love it, love it, love it. And let me be real with you. I'm totally looking forward to rocking out this next season. Fall is knocking on our door. I am pumped to get back to work as the kids go back to school. So my business operates year round, but I make an intentional decision to have a lighter load in the summer. It's something that simply feels right to me. It feels spacious, it feels really good, it feels luxurious, and it allows me to recharge my batteries so I can be prepared to freaking rock it out with the months that we have remaining this year. How about you? How are you feeling about what we've got left in 2019? So you should know that one of my greatest skills is that of a planner. I'm ultra organized, I'm ultra intuitive. I was featured in the New York Daily News, which is a huge newspaper in New York City, years ago for being so organized at work and at home. And I'll never forget when a photographer from the newspaper came to my tiny New York City apartment to photograph me in my bedroom, as organized as it was. I know how to prioritize and focus my energy on the projects and decisions that will move the needle the most in my business while I have plenty of free time to live my life. Basically, I know how to get my shit together in all the areas that matter, even when shit feels crazy. And sometimes it does feel crazy. I want to help you do this too. The perfect time to do it is now, as we are approaching the end of summer and gearing up for the most epic fall you can imagine. So, I've been feeling into what I wanted to offer to you to get you organized and fired up to rock out your goals with the 4+ months we've got left in 2019. This idea came to me in a flash, which is always what the best ideas do to me. The idea is this. I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to tell you about the fabulous conversation you're going to get a front row seat to today. The idea is this: a planning party to get your shit together. Yep. I know that sometimes your shit is not together and it might not be together now. So we're going to come together. We're going to do a little planning, some good times, some focused energy, to focus on you and your big vision for the remainder of the year. 90 minutes, me, you, and amazing women from around the world. I'm going to lead you through various exercises to get you focused on the most efficient and fun ways to surpass your income goals and make a giant impact with your people. We're going to look at the big areas that you need to focus on to ensure sustainable success. I'll do some laser coaching and I'll answer your questions, and you will walk away with a plan and your shit together. And yes, we're going to have fun as we do this, because why the freak not? And I've decided to make this planning party absolutely free. So head on over. It's happening this Thursday, August 22nd. Come live, watch the replay, whatever works best for you. The deal is you need to get your spot. jennyfenig.com/party. That's jennyfenig.com/party. And I will see you there. It's going to be rad. Okay, so today I have an awesome woman for you. Her name is Alexia Vernon. She is the author of Step Into Your Moxie, Amplify Your Voice, Visibility, and Influence in the World. She was dubbed a Moxie Maven by President Obama's White House Office of Public Engagement for her potent approach to women's empowerment. She's a sought-after women's speaking and leadership coach, and we oh my gosh, went so many amazing places during this conversation, and I'm excited for you to tune in today. We talked about unapologetically speaking up for yourself. And Alexia shares her own personal experience living through anxiety and postpartum depression, and how she has used those experiences to develop a system to guide her clients to become transformational speakers and leaders by doing the inner and outer work. Oh my gosh. Alexia works with her husband in her business. So if that's something that you're curious about how that might work, you're definitely going to get some powerful gems from Alexia today. And you're going to hear how she is able to show up differently on all platforms while creating a consistent message. That's something that I talk about with my clients as well. And we're going there today. We are going there today. So without further ado, enjoy this conversation with me and Alexia Vernon with the theme of Everything is Survivable. Enjoy. Alexia Vernon, welcome to Get Gutsy.
Thanks for having me, Jenny.
Yeah. Oh, this is fun. So before we got started, we were doing a little pre-show banter. You shared you were recently on vacation. Where did you go on vacation?
I was in Maui, and it was fantastic. I was there with my husband, my daughter, my extended family, my mom, my aunt. We go once a year for a week and just disappear. So it was really lovely.
Oh my gosh. I love Hawaii. It is a very special place.
It is. And it's got a special place in my heart. So my husband's actually Hawaiian. He's born, raised there.
Oh, really?
We didn't go back to the island he's from. This was my mom's trip, but there's something just very magical for us there. We got married there.
Did you? What island did you get married on?
Kauai, which is where he is from originally.
Oh, he's from Kauai. Okay, well, I got engaged on Kauai. So we've got some of that, Hawaiian magic in common. Yeah. And, and I have not been back since. I had been one other time prior to my now husband and I going, and I just remembered how spectacular it was. I was just like, I can't believe this is part of the United States, and it's so, it smells good. The air, the temperature is like
divine, always.
That's my ideal temperature. Like if I was to be a temperature, it would be Hawaii. Like that would be the temperature of Jenny. And getting engaged there was really spectacular. So you've just inspired me to get back there as soon as possible. Yeah, I would love to take a family trip there. We will do that. Okay, so you're on this incredible trip. Now, for those who don't know your work, tell us what are you passionate about? What's your work?
Professional vacationer. No, I'm just kidding. So my jam is showing people, particularly women, how to step into their moxie, by which I mean have the mindset and the skill set to be able to walk into any room or onto any stage and unapologetically speak up for themselves, for the ideas and issues that matter most to them, and know that when they speak, their words are going to move people to take action. And so I do that in a couple different ways. When I'm working with coaches, consultants, experts, thought leaders, a lot of that is helping folks really find what is their zone of genius and what is their sometimes provocative approach to a topic that is often discussed in their industry, and how to own that, how to be able to, whether they're doing traditional presentations, keynotes, workshops, retreats, how to be able to find their way to be unapologetic about what that message is and call people to take action on it. And then I also continue to do quite a bit of work in organizations, not just my own keynotes, but some executive coaching and working with teams around high impact and often high stakes communication in addition to presentation skills.
That's cool. So you are living in almost two worlds, two universes, the entrepreneurial community and then the corporate community. So how do you do that? How do you straddle those two worlds that can feel very different? I started my career in corporate. I'm now in the entrepreneurial realm. And yeah, there's awesome leaders everywhere who need help. And so this is a really great reminder to say, hey, you don't have to just pick one or the other. It can be both, because that message of stepping into your Moxie applies to leaders across the board. But how do you navigate kind of the logistics of that with your messaging and with how you organize your time? Walk us through that.
Great questions. The thing that has been the saving grace for me in all of my evolutions as an entrepreneur, and I started my business, 12 years ago, so I've been in it for a while, and I never am one of those people who likes to profess that it's been an upward climb. Like, it has definitely been a roller coaster. There's been
Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, and then
so is it just me? Is it just me with the old roller coaster?
Well, and here's the thing. I feel like there's this narrative of like, yes, everybody slogs at the beginning, and then you hit this moment, and then it's just pure ascension. And I'm really honest that, like, even if things are looking good and feeling good, there have been colossal lows. Even when I figured a lot of, can I say shit? A lot of shit.
Yes. Why am I going through that? I already know. You're like, well, yeah, it's just, you're human, and this is this lesson, it's just to kind of test you, or to be like, do you really want to be over here? Or what is your business as strong as you thought it was if this client walks out or this thing happens? And yeah.
So it's always been really clear what is the conversation that's going on in the head of the decision maker that I'm seeking to move to action. And it's funny because fear comes up all of the time. Like, most people at any given moment have a fearful voice in their heads, in their bodies in some way. But how that might be manifesting for an entrepreneur is obviously different than somebody in corporate. So I'll give you an example. For a lot of the women who I work with, it is this fear of, if I really say what I want to say and I'm in my truth, that is going to not allow me to grow my business. If I want to grow my business and I want to position myself as a celebrity and get clients, I'm going to have this very like flashy, in some ways sanitized, cutesy message. And that fear is often impeding the ability to, one, crystallize a message, two, get booked to speak, to deliver it, and three, have that message be converting fans and audience members into clients. Now, on the corporate side, usually it's not about how do I book speaking gigs. Sometimes it is, but it's often how do I show up in meetings where I might be a voice of dissension, and how do I make sure that I'm able to advocate for what I believe, build champions around me to help support the message that I'm sharing. And the obvious context, the difficult conversations you might have to have in the workplace, different than the ones you might have with a client, but very much the same strategies and techniques.
I love that. So when you're putting out let's look at like your social media content, and or if you've got, an email list, this is good for our audience really who might have kind of a diverse audience, or two different groups that are pretty distinct, but yet they've got some connection points there. How do you handle that in your business? Is there like one woman you have in mind? Is there kind of two women you have in mind? How do you work that in terms of putting out the messaging so that it connects with these various audiences? And then also your offers, how do you tailor that kind of languaging?
So it's medium to medium. And what I mean by that is I'm running Facebook ads. I mean, I don't have like a crazy Facebook ads budget, but when I think about what I'm doing on Facebook, that is a coach, a consultant, an expert who wants to use speaking and transformational live events to grow her business. That is the avatar. I mean, I could pull down into psychographic, but it's not the person. Now, I will have corporate people who will sign up for those programs, but that's not where it's at. Very similar to me on Instagram. I don't find that a lot of my corporate people are hanging out on Instagram looking at my stuff. So it's a lot of what I'm doing, program offers that I have, digital downloads, what's going on with my family, like who I show up as is consistent across platforms. And I want to be super clear about that. But the message might be different. So that I see as one of the things that gets people into trouble. Like I have to be sanitized and have on my power suit in one context, but then I'm wearing like a boho dress and a straw hat in the other. And like you can find me in both contexts doing that. That's all a part of my style. Yeah. But the difference is coming back to that speaking to the conversation in the head. So where I'm speaking to my corporate folks is a couple of key places. So one, if I'm on LinkedIn, definitely I'm assuming that that's going to be a more corporate leader. So the content I'm sharing there is going to be a little bit different. But most of my corporate work does not come from people on my list. And that is one of the biggest mistakes I see is when folks try to take all of the entrepreneurial stuff and say, okay, now I'm just going to focus it on a corporate avatar, whether that's a chief decision maker, a C-suite leader, or whether that is a professional who's working in corporate. If you're seeking to get individual, let's say, corporate clients who might be wanting to transition from corporate into entrepreneurship. That's not where those things happen. That's where speaking comes in totally. So when I'm doing my keynotes, or if I'm speaking to executive groups or to professional associations, that might be 80% of the same presentation I would give an entrepreneur around visibility and holding ourselves back and messaging. But the examples I give, the questions I ask are all going to be contextually specific to what they are going through. And I use that speaking as my primary bridge to corporate, as well as just having a good network. So if I've worked in an organization, corporate folks are always on the move. Someone might recommend me somewhere else. Being a part of senior leadership groups locally has certainly been helpful.
Yeah. And you're based in Las Vegas? Yeah. So is a lot of your corporate work?
Because
it wouldn't be like
1,000 companies. We have hospitals, we have tech, we of course have casinos, we have gaming,
and Zappos,
the slot machine, Zappos, which has been a client. We have a few different industries. So a lot of my corporate stuff has been outside of Vegas, but for a number of years, I ran a face-to-face women's leadership development program out of Las Vegas, where companies would sponsor their women. They would work with me over 9 months as a group. And every month we would look at a different leadership competency practically: negotiation, persuasive skills, presentation skills, coaching, conflict, and so forth. And a lot of companies ponied up and invested in their women to come do that program. And so, I mean, I realize we're going off like on a...
No, this is great. I love it. This is fun.
I have found that being really deliberate with my speaking strategy in 6-month increments has been key. So if I'm wanting to grow corporate, I need to be thinking about what's the pitching, networking, relationship I'm building I'm doing, and take my eye a bit off of the entrepreneurial stuff. Similarly, if I'm getting close to launching my 90-day speaker coaching program or my mastermind, if corporate stuff comes, cool, but I'm not in the throes of trying to land a lot of that, because then we become distracted and we spiral. Totally.
This is such an important conversation to have, even if, y'all listening in, you're not maybe the corporate entrepreneurial thing, but I was just sharing this. I had a call for a course that I was wrapping up today, and I was sharing with them really a content schedule, if you will, and how we do it in my business, and using this podcast as an example. Like, we have this giant spreadsheet and it has our episodes that have already run. I mean, we've been publishing this podcast since 2015. So we have just a different tab for each year, and we're in 2019 right now. So we've got the tab, and, it's highlighted based on what's already been put out there versus what's coming. I can always move things around, and I'm very intentional about the content I'm putting out and how is that supporting whatever I'm enrolling for, whatever I'm promoting. Because so much of this education that I know I do in my work, and a lot of my work is rooted in messaging as well, and preparing women to share that message on stage, on a podcast, on whatever, like, however, it doesn't matter what room you're in. Do you have that confidence to say what needs to be said to whoever that audience is? And I want everyone to realize that your content then needs to back into whatever you're then going to be selling. You know, what's the business piece here? I think so many women struggle with that. They don't know that that's a thing. They don't know that that they're allowed, or when they really step into that, they get pushback. They feel guilty. Sometimes shame is put their way. Like, what? You're selling something. It's like all this kind of crazy things that go down that you have to get really comfortable with on this journey. But I want everyone to see that the messaging and the content and the moves that you are putting your chips on, right? Let's like do Vegas here. Like, we're putting our chips over here. They're all connected to then what's the offer? You know, what's the invitation? What's that next step that you're inviting someone to take with you as their guide? Because that's how the business runs. You know, the business isn't running because you put out great content. Like that, you have to have a way for you then to receive the amazing clients who are ready to do that work with you. And so the container needs to be set and established, and our messaging just gets us there. All right, y'all, just being real, I had to pause it for a moment because there was a knock, knock, knock at my door. My daughter, Kate, who is 5, was like, hi, Mom. And Alexia also has a daughter who we discovered is also 5. So we know the magic of 5.
The magic and, let's be honest,
the mayhem.
Misery or mayhem.
Yeah, well, I have 2 sons as well. And my oldest is 10. My middle guy is 8. Yeah, each age just has loveliness and hardness. That's like friggin' everything, right? It's like life. But how much is it for you, Alexia, having a daughter? How much does she inspire your work? Especially, I know you've really identified women, as have I, as the audience that we just love serving. How much is having a daughter guide you along on this journey?
So much so. I didn't realize it at the time, but until she was born, I really felt like I was circling around the perimeter of my purpose as an entrepreneur. Like I was doing good work. I got pregnant, and that was the year that my business really took off, accelerated past 6 figures. Mm-hmm. And I knew more than anything, I wanted to be a mom. Pregnancy happened really easily for us. And then did not get the delivery experience we'd hoped for. A cat who I had since I was 19 years old died within a day of bringing my daughter home from the hospital, and went into really serious postpartum depression and anxiety. And while there are a lot of contributing factors to that, because hindsight, of course, is always 20/20, I know that one of the biggest was recognizing I wanted to be this super present and amazing mom for my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I had all of this ambition, and I didn't know how to be able to bring that all together. Mm-hmm. And again, don't want to suggest that everything has been rainbows and cupcakes since, because it certainly hasn't. I've had the opportunity to have my husband for the last 2 years working full-time in the business. That was another big boss move for our family. Having my daughter come, and my husband come with me a lot for the book tour when Step Into Your Moxie, my book, released this fall, which is all about how to amplify your voice, visibility, and influence. So seeing my daughter be a part of that was really cool. Wow. But at the same time, I see her, despite being in this amazing learner-centered school, have moments where she really struggles to self-advocate for herself with a friend on the playground, or looks in the mirror a little too long to assess whether or not she has or has not won the genetic lottery. And those moments are hard. And, you know, I try really hard to have work-life integration. I'm not going to claim balance, but there are moments where I think to myself, wow, I've worked a little harder than I would like the last 2 weeks. I'm home, but I've been really busy and not super present. And if I were just showing up to a job and if I left at 5 o'clock, I might have an easier time shutting off, but I'm in the midst of a launch and I'm having a really hard time shutting off.
Yeah.
So in our family, our number one rule, we actually have all these core values that we created together this last year, which was an awesome experience.
Nice.
At the top of the list of our core values is we are brave and compassionate truth tellers. And so some folks might say we are a little too transparent with our daughter. She knows everything in an age appropriate way, but if we're struggling with something, she knows, and again, an age appropriate way. We talked about bodies in a very open way. So since she was able to talk, we have role play conversations about what does and does not constitute safe touch. That's been a huge part of my own journey, being sexually abused when I was 4 years old, and having had a mom who worked with me before the abuse started is why I disclosed to her immediately when a family member started abusing me. So it's a big question. It makes me weepy a little bit inside because she's my everything. And yet I've let go of that desire for her to see mom rocking it, because I don't want her to think that it's been easy, because that just sets her up for self-sabotage if and when things are not as easy for her in her own pathway to her voice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It was just so beautiful to have you walk through that. There's like so many things in there that I'm curious about. I want to go in deeper. And I first want to say thank you for your honesty and your transparency. And thank you for saying that it's not always going to be easy. Like, I get so mad about that when people are like, it's just not easy. I'm like, and I say to my clients all the time, we're not trying to pick easy. You know, we can make it easier. There was something recently I changed my mind on something, like, you know what, I did that other thing. I only did that because I thought that's what people would want. But like, that's not what I want. I don't want to do that. And I thought this would be easier for people. I'm like, but I don't want to work with people who only want easy. Like, that's just not it. That's not it. And it's like Glennon Doyle says, you know, we can do hard things. I got a Peloton a few months back, and the teachers will say, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be hard. Your workout is supposed to be easy. You know, it's not. And it's our willingness to say, yeah, this is going to be hard. There's ways we can make it easier. But if you think it's just this cakewalk and rainbows and cupcakes every single day, you're wrong. And then the first obstacle, you're going to say, that's it. I quit. I guess I'm not cut out for this. It's like we have to prepare ourselves for hard. We need to be as strong as we can, compassionate, all the things. I love what you said about creating that core values as a family. That's fantastic. Let's dive in with your husband, the whole what was he doing before he worked in your business?
So nothing remotely related. He was a wildlife biologist, and he led field operations for an environmental consulting company. So it meant that he was oftentimes gone Monday to Friday, sometimes Monday to Saturday, a state away overseeing crews, because in Las Vegas, we don't have a lot of wildlife. So that was a challenge, to be scaling my business during those years, running a mastermind, doing all of those things with him being gone so much. We knew for a while we wanted to work together because we wanted to grow something as a family. And I've got to say that feeling like I'm in partnership in business, in life, in parenting has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. And sometimes I think, if we weren't doing this business, I would want us to be doing something else together now. I would hope that the way life unfolds will always feel that level of partnership, because it works really well with our family. But of course, that means, we've got one primary source of revenue, and as a family, we gotta,
you gotta make it work, baby. Yeah. So what is his role? So are you kind of like the chief visionary, kind of lay out, how have you all designed this?
So his role in title is COO, Chief Operations Officer, but it's more that he needed a title. It's easier to describe what his work is. So a lot of my work is private client based, whether that's organizational private clients, whether that's the women in my mastermind, or whether that is women who are just working with me for VIP days or on short private client projects. And so I don't want to refer to him as customer service, because it's so much deeper than that, but he is really client nurturing, client engagement in terms of getting them what they need. So we run a tight team. He doesn't handle a lot of our online operations. So I have an online business manager who comes with a virtual assistant, and then we have a web developer that work a certain amount of hours in the month. So he's a little bit separate from that because he's dealing more with the coaching client or the prospect who might be coming in, let's say, during a launch. He also has a skill set in photography. So when folks work with us, we often will create speaker reels for them that they can use in their speaking and business marketing. And then they get in-action photos of them. So he does the photography, he oversees the video crew, and we do one large live event, and then we do some smaller satellite events, and he's in charge of all of that face-to-face operation.
Great. Yeah. So you really just saw where could he come in and do this thing. Did you have any growing pains when you first started working together?
Anybody who says that they don't is full of it. Because he wasn't coming in with a technical skill set that necessarily matched the business. And, you know, by that point, I think I was 10 years into the business. We've been together for 17 years now. So he's seen me the whole way through. He had certainly some institutional knowledge of the business being by my side, but it's very different to have a full-time job and to have a viewpoint versus to be enmeshed in it 24/7. So probably one of the more challenging things I did was I got my book deal the same month he left his work. So that meant that the first 5.5 months of him being newly in the business, it was also right the same month that the mastermind started up. So he was thrust into helping to support this group of women. And I was gone a lot of like the extra time. So I would coach a lot because I do coach in my programs. I don't outsource a lot of the coaching. And then I'd be writing my book. So it became challenging. And then we decided at the 1-year mark to build a home. So then, you know, we created another project, but this is definitely like we've realized we've done such amazing work with women, but like we don't need another project. Like let's just do our work right now and keep the family stuff a lot tamer.
Got it. Yeah, you pile it on, but that's sometimes just what it is. You mentioned the book part. When we, I really got serious in my book. I self-published my first book, Get Gutsy. I was like, that's it. I'm not going to wait for any. I'm doing it. It's getting out there. And I was doing that simultaneously. I hired like a very premium book writing coach. She was an LA Times bestselling author. Like I just went for it. I was like, all right, I'm going to self-publish, but this could be traditional.
With a ton of support.
With a lot of support, and like that it's really well written. It's really well done. And so I was in this intensive writing process with her. She would, give me feedback, and it was like hard. It was so hard. She'd go through line by line. Oh my God. And so there was that. And while I was in that, we were doing putting an addition on our house. And so you talk about that. It was like, this room I'm in didn't exist when I was writing my book. This was not a room. This was land. And so, yeah, there's times in your life that you're just in this major creation phase. You're in this major kind of just pulling things out of the earth, and it's messy, and you're not quite sure how you're going to get through to the other side, but you're going to keep showing up, and you're going to stay in faith and all of that. So let's talk about an area you and I mean, there's a lot in common between you and I know that there's this area that we share a real common mind around, which is what you're taking a stand for. And I just want to hear you talk about it, and then spend some time looking at what our opportunities are, especially within this coaching realm, to honor this this truth around aligning our platforms with what really matters to us. So let's talk about that.
I started my speaking career when I was 19 years old. I won the Miss Junior America competition, and it was not something that was by design at all. I was absolutely terrified of public speaking through my 20s. I had learned how to puff up and perform and hustle through, but I struggled big time with anxiety. And another truth bomb, I've struggled with anxiety my whole life. I just don't do it with speaking and thought leadership. Like that's not where it manifests anymore, but it's definitely still work that I have to do. But the reason I bring this up is I would often hide behind slides and facts and figures of other speakers. My
Yep.
first iteration as a coach consultant was on onboarding and multiple generations in the workplace and developing emerging leaders. And I
Mhm.
was good at it. I had work, but I always felt like I wasn't really speaking the truth. I wasn't telling the
Yep.
stories I wanted to tell. I wasn't
Yep.
embodying the speaking style I had. I was constantly flip flopping between being feminine and not like the good feminine, but dismissive of myself, and then being hyper masculine and taking up space and fist pumping and like not being me at all. And the
Right. Right.
first time that it really changed for me was the first time I told the story about speaking up about sexual abuse. Like I pivoted in my keynote. I talked about that, what it taught me about voice and
Mhm.
faith.
Mhm.
And it changed everything for me. I never wanted to go back and speak the way that I did.
Uh-huh.
And while I would wager that probably 60 to 70% of the women who I've had the privilege of supporting have encountered some form of domestic violence, sexual abuse, assault, harassment, in some cases, sex trafficking. Like there's a lot, I think, of brave, bold, gutsy, or as I would say,
Mhm.
moxie-licious
Mhm.
voices that are
Mhm.
wanting to speak born out of what they've overcome. Many times that's not the message,
Right.
but somehow there's been this internalized message that either one of two things, that when I speak,
Mhm.
people will listen, but I may
Yeah.
not be ready for that. For people to
Mm.
dislike me, to judge me, to negate me. So that was very much my experience. Although my mom, my superhero, when I
Mhm.
spoke up and out, not everybody in my family was ready for that difficult information. And there were people who told me I must have made this up. Maybe it really did happen, but it was somebody else in the family, or worse, that I just wanted attention. So, like,
Yeah.
that was a piece for me. But in other
Uh-huh.
cases, for women I've had the privilege of supporting, it's a little bit different. It's
Uh-huh.
actually, I think people do like me because
Uh-huh.
I haven't really said anything that would work the other way. And so that's how I
Yeah.
was a coach and a consultant. I wouldn't tell my clients when I saw them making mistakes. Like I would kind of
Mm.
skirt around it because I didn't want to wrap up in love necessary critique to help them move through their
Right.
blind spots and have their breakthrough.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
fell more in love with coaching when I emboldened myself to ask the questions, but as necessary, deliver the feedback that people
Yeah.
needed to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those women who might fall into either category, first category being I've spoken, it didn't go well, I was judged, and I'm still in some ways archiving that story and reeling from it. Or on the flip side, I don't actually know what it's like to be disliked or judged in a big way. Maybe I've experienced like microaggressions from saying things, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more the fear of what would happen rather than this is what did happen. I
Yeah.
would really pose the same question, which is what would it look like? But more importantly, what would it feel like for you?
Mm-hmm.
If each and every time you opened your mouth, you spoke your truth
Mm-hmm.
and you did it from a place of compassion for those who might not see things through the same lens as you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we can make that our default habit, everything changes. Like, yes, there are people who unsubscribe, who unlike, who send us hate messages, but we don't feel it nearly as intensely because on the other side, the people
Mm-hmm.
who really need us as their messenger, they raise their hands. Like
Right.
every time I have sent out an email, for example, because my emails tend to be on the provocative side.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I will get the unsubscribes or I will get people sending nasty things, but I have way more of the people who are like, thank you for saying that. I needed to hear
Yeah.
it. Women
Yes.
will sometimes write to me, because of you, I left my job, I left my husband, I
Mm-hmm.
did whatever it was. And I might be telling a story that, it's clearly not about leaving your husband, but it was just
Right.
something about
Yes.
authentic alignment.
Yes.
Between the voice in here and the voice here, and for those who write copy, the voice here, that just
Mm-hmm.
started that chain reaction of positive results for them. But
Yeah.
we can get
Yeah.
through anything, but it's really hard to get through when we're telling ourselves half truths, and as a result, speaking half truths in the world.
Right. Right. I love the way you broke that down. It's knowing that, I mean, if we don't have the truth, what do we have? Okay. And honestly, we're living in most of our listeners are based in the United States. But shout out to all of our listeners around the world. We've got lots of different countries represented here, but the vast majority are US based. And we're living in this really bizarre time. And I know listen, I'm 42 now. There have been wild times in history throughout history. So, but yet, because we have all this access to information and media, like we have media now in ways that did not exist 20 years ago, 100 years ago. And so we're being bombarded with lots of messages. We're being bombarded with many half-truths, lots of just flat-out lies. I mean, now we have, I was just reading an article in, I think it was the New York Times, how videos are being totally doctored and kind of being presented like, look at this person who's like out of her mind, and they've
I know exactly what you're asking.
Nancy Pelosi, and so and it's like, what? And so we, especially as women, we have to be the ones who step forward and are like, oh, let's just call a spade here, okay? Because if we're not willing to tell the truth, and I think that's why we're in this place where we have so much of the machine is built on lies, but it starts with us. It's like, how as a society did we create this? You know, did we get into this world where some people don't even know what is truth anymore? It's like you're so deluded because you've been telling lies your whole life about who you are, about how you feel, about what is real. And so your stand, Alexia, is so important that our listeners take in. And this is very much what I talk about too. It's like, just tell the freaking truth. And those who can't come with you won't come with you. It's okay. They're not bad people. They don't want to go on the boat with you. They're not going to go on this cruise with you.
And sometimes they may not be ready for what we've shared, but make no mistake, sometimes people's first reaction is to block and shut it off.
Yeah.
But our words might still be working themselves through that person. I love when somebody will reach out and say, I saw you speak 5 years ago at X event. Mm-hmm. And whether I liked you or I didn't like you, like something you said just really incubated. And then this is what's happened as a result. Because some of this stuff doesn't immediately convert. I mean, totally. Our businesses, right? Just because somebody joins your list doesn't mean they're going to buy from you. It might be 3 to 5 years later.
Totally. And it's so important to ask those questions. Yeah, we just did that. It's cool to listen to that too with your customers. Again, I just had this live event. And so it was cool to be like, I've been on your list for the last 10 years and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how did you find it? I heard you on so-and-so's podcast. And this is the long game. You know, this is the long game. Everyone tuning in at different points in their journey. But this is, you can't be an entrepreneur if you just want like the quick hit and then you're out. I mean, sure, but not in this kind of a business. Like, it's just not going to be. You got to really dig in and be committed to the highs and the lows, to the freaking roller coaster, because there is going to be a massive roller coaster. How does someone deal with that fear? You mentioned, we talked about that a few times, but just, when you're getting the truth out there, knowing, oh no, someone might send me a nasty email, or somebody might tell me in my face that they didn't like the blah, blah, or they canceled this thing. It's like, we have these deep-rooted feelings of maybe abandonment or somebody talking about us behind our back, or, we have these wounds that we bring with us, these scars. How does someone deal with that so that it doesn't muzzle them from getting on the stage, pitching their program, doing media appearances, stuff like that?
Two things. So one, there's the how do you prepare your message? And coming out of the instructional design training world, I absolutely love playing with people via role play. So whether you are role playing a presentation, whether you are role playing your facilitation, if you're going to lead a workshop or a retreat, whether you are role playing a daring conversation, you need to have with a client or with a team member. It's one of the things I talk about in Step Into Your Moxie. Like the Cliff version is breaking down, reverse engineering from the ideal outcome you want someone to take. Then work backwards, thinking about what are the things you want to say, what are the questions you want to ask, to ideally move the conversation, the negotiation, the presentation to that outcome.
Got it.
And practice it out loud. Because as women, we tend to ruminate and we sculpt everything in our heads. I can't tell you how many people will show up to me who are professional keynote speakers. And I'll ask them, you know, if we're going to dive into amplifying their keynote, like, can you show me an outline or a video? And what often happens is one of two things. Either they will send me a manuscript that has literally 3 seconds written out.
Scripted.
So scripted that there's no room to even breathe within that unless that's scripted. Or on the flip side, they've been winging it. They have a great platform. They have a best-selling book, but there's been no strategy. It's just been, let me get up and share my story. And that sweet spot is in between those two poles. Now, some of us are going to lean more on the improvisational side. Some of us are going to lean a little bit more like we need more scripting. But in either case, we have to get up from behind our computer screen and walk and talk, hear our own words, feel our bodies, see what our bodies do when we're communicating.
Right.
Because 90% of the time when people tell me they feel wretched anxiety, I prefer to call it sensation, because I think that for most of us, like, anxiety can be a condition, but what people are talking about when it comes to speaking is rarely anxiety. It's usually not knowing how to navigate what we're feeling in pursuit of sharing our message and going big.
Yeah.
But when they tell me that, like, I'm still feeling like this, it's always a preparation issue. It's just not walking and talking enough.
Yep.
Now, on the second side, and this is equally important, but how do I get ready for, like, haters? For lack of
preparing for haters, yes.
Yeah. I like to keep it really simple and ask. So, like, just name the worst fear, because so often it's not naming it that's creating all the mishigas inside. So being able to say, what's the worst thing that could happen? Hypothetically, somebody will unsubscribe. Okay. Then what would
leave
happen?
a horrible review on Amazon.
They might not want to continue in my coaching program, and then what will happen? And when we start to do that, we realize absolutely everything is survivable.
I love that. Everything is survivable.
And I know that feels, for those who follow Marie Forleo, a little bit figure-outable. Difference. Because there's some things, like when we don't know where revenue's coming from, that's about figuring it out.
Yeah.
But surviving it out, to me, is different. And the thing most of us have, especially this woman, for those who are watching, like, my hand is up, I have a really hard time with when it's not about hustling, but it's about surrendering and trying. I will survive something.
Yeah, I'm not going to die from this.
I'm not going to die. And there might be losses that are uncomfortable and suck.
Right. Yeah.
But I'll survive. And that's a huge piece of, we have to have our all-star championship team with us. Mentors, sisters who are in a similar season of business who have our back.
Yes.
Because sometimes, like, I've never been without a coach more than a few months, because I believe that coaches need coaches.
Yeah.
But I've also tried not to be without sisters who can have a different level of conversation. They might not be pointing out my blind spots. They might not be per se or giving the business advice. They're going to cry on a pillow with me, or they're going to doing this is how I got through it.
Yes.
And then also having strong relationships with my family. So in this season, I don't talk to all of my family. There are folks who, because of the wound of sexual abuse, might have been in my life for a season and have been gone for a very long time. Others who stuck around, but then when I got more vocal,
that made them uncomfortable. They couldn't do it. Yep. I hear you.
But the people that I keep close, it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Oh, I am so with you. And thank you for bringing that up. I have similar situation on, in my family realm, and I've created the family that I've wanted. No knock on my family of origin, but there was some hard stuff and had to make challenging choices. But when you're so committed to, that's why it's so great to talk to you. When you're so committed to the work, like, this is coming through me. Like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. And I will not allow myself to be encumbered by things that aren't supportive on this quest. Like, this is happening. It's so happening. And so I say that to my people all the time. You're going to have to make real tough calls. real tough calls. You're going to walk away from people, places, things, habits that maybe are comfortable for you, but they're actually really destructive and they're not helpful and they're not healthy. And so I will be that example to you as someone who has done it, and a reminder to you that you can do it too. Oh my gosh, Alexia, you're incredible. What is the people? Yeah, I know. It's so good. That's why it's like, oh, the podcast for me is just like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, oh, I get to have these great conversations and just push record and then share them with people. This is so fabulous. All right, well, you're obviously a very gutsy woman. And I want to know, what is the gutsiest move you've ever made, and how does it inspire your life and work today?
So I know you like to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about it, and there was business stuff of like when I gave this speech at this location.
Yeah.
The gutsiest thing that I did was come back from postpartum depression 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And say that this is going to be the launching pad. I get weepy. I mean, it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's okay.
But I've recently talked about this, so I've been very involved. Like, if anybody listening is in the throes of postpartum depression or anxiety, like, just reach out. That's like just a side passion I have, because I think for women, particularly high performing women, it is one of the most difficult things we can go through, and the most embarrassing, shameful to raise your hand and say I have, particularly tons of privilege. You chose, you might have worked even really hard to get pregnant. I
have that baby. Yeah.
But in that moment, saying, I'm going to get help.
Yeah.
And take prescription medication.
Yep.
I'm going to survive for myself, for my kid, for my family.
Right.
And I'm going to grow my business bigger and deeper than I could possibly imagine. And I'm not going to be attached to outcome or how fast it happens. But I know that I went through this to be able to speak up and serve other people.
That's right. And that's right. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. And I, one of my teachers is Gabby Bernstein. I don't know.
I was about to say, and
she's just been sharing publicly about this, postpartum anxiety. And so, I appreciate women like you who put this out there. I mean, it's so important to talk about. Like, one of the things for me that, I've shared, and this is different from what you all have, but I'm, the family thing, I'm estranged from my mother. And so there's that. It's like these things like, that's not supposed to happen. You are supposed to have a relationship with your mom. It's like all these things, like, I wouldn't need to have anxiety or depression after this wonderful thing, but like, things happen and our bodies are designed a certain way. There's just these paths that we go down. And the more that we are willing to speak the truth, put it out there and say, hey, you're not alone, or hey, this is how I've gone through it, or if you need support, like, reach out to me. That's how we get through it as women. We don't need to hide this out. We don't need to be in this shame. We need to speak our truth into the world and know that from there we grow. From there we grow. Thank you for sharing that, Alexia. Where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you, be in your world?
Yes. So across social media, I'm Alexia Vernon. I keep that simple. For folks who might be self-identifying in the coach, consultant, healer, expert realm and are wanting to be more proactive about getting in front of audiences as a speaker, as a workshop leader, as a facilitator, I will send you the link so that you can share it in the show notes. But for those who are listening, it's 9mistakes.com, the word 9 spelled out, NINE mistakes.com. And it's 9 mistakes that coaches, consultants, and experts make in speaking and how to avoid them so you can go pro.
I love that.
Delicious stuff in there about mistakes on the content side, on the voice side, and the marketing side, that like, what to do differently. And of course, if you like our conversation, you can check out the book, your Moxie.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, so good. Well, congratulations on everything that you have built and will build. Congratulations for, having your husband join you on this quest, and just showing your daughter what a strong woman looks like, and, being willing to have these challenging conversations. And, like, what I love about this show and a lot of podcasts, I listen to a few myself, it's like I put stuff out, but I need to consume as well. I'm very intentional about my consumption, but it's just the telling of the truth. It's being like, this was crazy, or no, I had no experience with that, but I just freaking did it anyway. I just listened to a podcast today with the founder of Stacy's Pita Chips. like, it's Stacy. Like, there's a girl named Stacy. It's like, there is a Stacy of Stacy's Pita Chips. And just that whole story, like, she was a freaking social worker. And her co-founder, which at the time was her boyfriend, then became a husband, now ex-husband, but they stayed in business together. He was a psychologist with a PhD.
That's really cool. I love stories like that.
You know what I mean? You're like, dude, that's so rad. You know, this work is challenging, but it's not like anyone can get in the game. It's like, just get in the game and figure it out. And like you said, everything is survivable. But to your point, you need to have that sisterhood. You want to have coaches, guides, therapists, like your team. You need your team. You want to have those people you can trust who, you know, like, no matter what's going on, you know who you can reach out to. Like, you know what your support structure is, because, well, yes, everything is survivable. It's not the easiest road in the world either. And so we don't want to injure ourselves unnecessarily because life happens. And so, Alexia, thank you so much for being here. You're amazing. I look forward to all the things that you create next and all the wonderful people that you're helping. Everyone tuning in, get her 9mistakes.com resource for you. And we will see you next time here on Get Gutsy. This is your girl, Jenny Fennick, sending you so much love, magic, and confidence. Get out there, get gutsy, and do the damn thing.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Get Gutsy with Jenny Fennig. Gutsy leaders unite and ignite.